So I tried to stick to the exact 1 hour I was given, which is why I'm sorry we had to skip so many pages all the time to my heroic translators.
네, 굉장히 많은 다양한 지점에서 생각해야 할 부분이 있는 그런 이야기를 들려주신 것 같습니다. 아마 그 질문이 굉장히 많을 것 같은데요. 네, 일단 제가 한 가지 질문하고 또 관객 여러분들의 질문을 받겠습니다. 지금 여러 가지를 종합적으로 얘기 슈드하브라타님의 얘기를 들으면서 든 생각은 일단 예술적 행동에 대한 한 가지 궁금증이 생기기도 합니다. 예술을 하는 그 주체의 문제일 수도 있지만 또한 예술적 결과물이 보는 자에게 그 생각할 수 있는 어떤 도구로서 이용될 수 있고 또 그럴 수 있다라는 것에 대한 믿음이 아마도 예술적 주체 행동하는 사람과 또 그것을 바라보는 감상자들 혹은 관객과의 관계가 되는 것 같기도 하는데 제가 얼핏 얘기를 듣다 보면은 예술이 하나의 어떤 명상이나 깨달음의 어떤 도구가 될 수 있는 것처럼도 생각이 듭니다. 특히 지금 말씀하셨던 어떤 무한대와 어떤 버닝 타버리는 것과의 어떤 유사함 또 질적인 것과 양적인 것의 관계라든가 또 말씀하셨던 관계의 기하학 같은 그런 것들을 염두에 두고 생각해 볼 때에 정말로 그렇다면은 그 예술을 하기 전에 생각하면서 바라보고 생각했던 이런 그 예술가가 가지고 있던 그런 컨셉, 개념들이 어떻게 그것을 보는 자들에게 이게 물론 이해될 수 있는 부분은 아니지만은 어떤 형태의 소통으로서 이게 가능할 것인가에 대한 고민은 하고 물론 늘 하고 계시겠지만은 그런 지점에서 이 락스미디어 콜렉티브 그룹 안에서의 어떤 토론 연구가 있는지 그 부분에 대해서 좀 궁금합니다.
Well, thank you for your question. I mean, I think that the daily life of the Rux Media Collective is an illustration of the everything is burning principle. All our curiosities are alight all the time, and we think about very simple things like the formation of materials to constantly parsing texts that come to us from the walls of our city. I'm obsessed with the kind of things that you find written on the walls, like, I don't know if you have them here, missing person notices or telephone numbers for various different kinds of services that the city provides, to the reading of philosophical texts, to the reading of literature, to the reading of history. And I think that this practice of reading everything from the personal columns of the newspaper to philosophy is what ignites our curiosities. So we are constantly thinking with each other, and the formation of works is not really about let's do this project, right? It is more a question of the relationship between one thing and another thing and another thing that actually transcends the borders and limits of particular works. So I now realize that we began an obsession with windmills in the accumulation of in the capital of accumulation. There was a sequence in which you saw windmills, and windmills have repeated themselves again and again in our work. We find strange figures like rhinoceroses, like deep sea divers, like ghosts of different kinds, who appear and disappear from one work to another work to another work. So it's not as if we are making discrete projects, like, oh, here is we are going to make this film about George Orwell's book, or here we are going to make a film about soldiers from India in the First World War, or here we are going to make a film about a work about the disputes and arguments between the Confucius and Buddha and Lao Tse. These are all different kinds of works. But it's as if we are obsessively repeating and being haunted by the same things again and again, which appear and disappear in different combinations. And that's what fuels our curiosities and our interests. So it keeps happening every day. So we're never meeting in order to say, let's make this work. We meet every day and we write to each other every day because we have questions to ask of each other and the world. I don't know if that answers your question.
지금 말씀하신 중에 이제 그 흥미로운 그런 그 부분이 이제 고스트 관련되는 부분인데, 그러니까 시간이 경과하면서 어차피 시간은 공유가 되지가 않잖아요. 그러니까 우리는 나눠진 개체이니까. 그래서 그 나눠진 개체들이 각자가 갖고 있는 고유한 시간성들 속에서 그게 어떤 변질되는 것들이 생길 것이고, 또 찾고자 하는 것들의 어떻게 보면은 일종의 정념과 같은 게 고스트일 수도 있지만, 또한 되게 유물론적으로 접근하면은 고스트라는 것도 그냥 하나의 물질적인 에너지와 같은 것일 수도 있기 때문에, 이게 때로는 마치 그 구스타브 칼 융이 말했던 것처럼 집단적 무의식의 어떤 방향, 왜곡된 것, 뭐 이런 것들의 반영이 또 고스트가 될 수도 있지 않을까. 그래서 대단히 어떤 때로는 위험한 징후가 될 수도 있지 않을까 하는 생각도 듭니다. 그런 부분에서 좀 더 그 하실 얘기가 있다면. 네.
Well, I mean, I'd respond to you by saying that whenever people asks me, so are you Rux Media Collective? And I always say, I am not Rux Media Collective. Rux Media Collective is a third other, or some other figure who emerges at the intersection of Monica's impatience with me and of Jibesh's extortion of me. So he points a gun at me and says, what are you going to do next? And I would reply by throwing the question back at him. There is a spirit that emerges out of the meeting or the game that is played between three people. And I think in any collective endeavor, anyone who makes films will instinctively understand that that's what happens on a set or on the street when you're filming. Something happens between a camera, between a sound recorder, and finally at the editing table. So it's very different as a sensibility, in my opinion, from the way in which artists are trained in art school, which is to say that the art emerges from inside themselves. I've never had the feeling that the art comes out of me. Artistic practice is what happens when me and some other people meet and we discover something that is actually outside ourselves. That's a bit like tapping tables to raise a spirit.
아까 어떤 부분에선가 주체가 배제가 된다라는 식의 표현을 했었던 것 같은데, 네, 어떻게 보면 굉장히 불교적인 그런 얘기일까요? 결국 자아가 사라지는 걸까요? 이건 개인적인 궁금함이기도 합니다.
Well, I am not a Buddhist, but I'm very interested in the idea, which is central to some forms of Buddhism, that there is no such thing as a self. There is a set of contingent relationships that change all the time. So what we talk about are the connections between yourself and the person sitting next to you, and the person sitting next to them, and their father, and their uncle, and the world. So our formation of consciousness is actually a set of things that changes with every encounter. I know that is an idea that is quite foundational to certain kinds of Buddhism. It's something that I am sympathetic to, and it resonates with me. I would not hold it up as an absolute truth, because I don't know what an absolute truth is. I suspect that if the Buddha were to walk into this room and we asked him this question, he would say something like that.
제가 이해한 부분은 아까 이제 나는 락스미디어 콜렉티브가 아니라고 말씀하셨던 것처럼 어떻게 보면 제3자가 될 수 있다라는 가정이 성공해야만 어떻게 보면 콜렉티브 워크, 협업이 가능하지 않을까 하는 생각도 듭니다.
Yeah. I always like to think that I'm an agent of the Rux Media Collective. You know, I mean, let's take the life insurance business. It has agents. Life insurance itself is something that happens when a lot of people pay premiums and it collects in the middle. So let's assume that the artistic practice that I'm a part of is something like that. It will yield results, but I am not its author, I am its agent. I collect for it and I disperse from it. I don't know if that makes sense.
저희가 가장 궁금했던 부분은 아마도 어떻게 진정한 협업이 가능한가와도 관련이 있을 것 같기도 합니다. 제가 제 개인적으로 질문할 부분은 굉장히 많지만 모이신 관객분들이 또 궁금한 점이 많으실 것 같아서 질문을 받기로 하겠습니다. 네, 질문 있으신 분들은 손을 들어주시면.
Thanks for a wonderful presentation. Given that his questioning has taken a bit of a psychological turn, it's very indulgent for me to ask a question like this, but it's just a matter of curiosity. A lot of what you describe in your collective practice, particularly the bits relating to relationality, I suppose you could say, as a descriptive, to describe the shape of how you operate, is connectionist, if I may use that word. And this, in a sense, pins you to a certain moment in cultural history, I think. And there are other things, of course, in your practice that do as well. I think you said something early on about an interest in the things that you have to just do every day anyway. That somehow those everyday things can be a portal to seeing something extraordinary. But I'm curious about this feeling of making connections, which you came back to many times. There are others, I think, who might describe that as a form of paranoia. It really, I mean, it's almost textbook kind of, everything is connected. So I just wonder if I can throw that at you, and I wonder how you feel about that. Is your practice a paranoid practice? Your meaning collectively. Does the collectivity or does the multiplicity of racks exacerbate such a paranoid state, or is it a check against it somehow?
If you were to ask my colleague Monica this question, she would say, I am paranoid. Shuddha is paranoid. She is not. But I think that's also one of the saving graces of a collective practice, which is that while one of us might take the everything is connected into the darker recesses of constantly thinking about conspiracies, at the same time, somebody else takes the everything is connected to a certain level of lightness and ease, right? And it is the tension between these modes of operating that makes for some of the fuel of the work. I mean, just to give you a brief example, Jibesh and I have had a 20-year-long quarrel about whether the moon landing was fake or not. In this case, he was the one who was paranoid, I was not. I believed in the moon landing. Neil Armstrong was my hero. Jibesh said it was all fake. He's read it all in the dark net about how it's fake. Then we went and looked at the rocket in Houston, the Saturn rocket. And we both examined the fact that it had dents on it and there were nuts and bolts that seemed made by hand, which they were. And he said to me, and we put this dispute at rest by saying, the rocket's real, so at least a part of it is not fake. And that's what I mean. I mean, okay, yes, everything is connected, leads to this dangerous territory, which is personally dangerous, of thinking that you have to find the clue to everything and then it all comes crashing down. But one of the advantages, at least to being the part of a collective that I am, is a robust skepticism of each other all the time. Neither one of us takes the other person very seriously. And that seems to save the day. I don't know if that answers your question.
네, 또 질문 있으신 분은? 네. 그 어떤 강박증과 같은 것도 말씀하셨는데, 아카이브의 노예가 되지 않는 방법이 과연 있을까요? 라는 생각도 듭니다. 이게 파라노익한 이런 그 강박증적인 어떤 상태는 어떤 대상을 필요로 하잖아요. 그 대상의 그 정보는 과연 어떻게 오는 것인가? 그렇다고 하면 아카이브로부터 우리가 과연 벗어날 수 있을까? 근데 또 거짓된 아카이브로부터도 과연 자유로울 수가 있을까? 여러 가지 질문이 들기도 합니다.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that happens if you spend a lot of time in archives, which I do, is that you realize that archives produce inconsistent records. Like if you look at a file and you look at the different items in a file, they are all they have holes in them. So the same event may have 6 documents, and the 6 documents between them have 36 holes, which do not describe the event. And when we first started working in the archives, we were slaves to the archive. I used to be a slave to what was written on each datum. As I worked more and more, I realized that the really interesting bits were what was not written in the file, right? And it was to find the relationship between what was written and what was not written, which for us was the work. And it's a bit like, you know, I mean, let's face it, if you weren't paranoid, you wouldn't be a detective. So, and I began to see my work as being, at least, as being a lot like the detective, the private investigator who looked at things between traces, between clues. And then you had to find a method, and I've always maintained that one of the good things about a documentary film training is the bizarre but true axiom: truth is stranger than fiction. Everything I find in the archive is harder to imagine than what we think is true. And this is because our work depends a lot on the archive. We consistently find really strange things, and we put them in our films, and everybody thinks that those are the ones that are fictional. The things that are fictional in our work are the ones that are easy to believe. The things that are difficult to believe are the ones that are in fact empirically grounded. So it's that relationship.
이런 관점에서 또 질문을 하실 분이 있으실 것 같은데, 네.
네, 락스 미디어 콜렉티브에게 실패한 리서치란 무엇인지 그런 경험이 있는지 궁금합니다.
Oh, yes. Every investigation is a failed investigation. But that's the pleasure of it. I mean, there is never, I think at the end of a work, we realize that we know that what was it, the Donald Rumsfeld phrase, the unknown unknowns are greater than the known unknowns. So after having spent 3 years researching the life and death of Rosa Luxemburg, I can now confidently say that more is unknown to me than was before I started this work. In that sense, it's a failed investigation. But that's the point. It's to produce, I think, that the aesthetics that we work with, and this could be the flip side of paranoia, is the pleasure of uncertainty, is the hesitation to say that I know for certain something is true. And I think that, I mean, personally, if you ask me why do I go to a museum, why do I confront a work of art, why do I read a book, my personal reason is to, at the end of reading the book or after seeing the work of art, to have more questions than answers. So failed investigations please me and excite me.
결국 그 어떤 자료들의 디테일한 것들을 파고들면서 추적하고 있는 것들이 있지만은 놓치는 것들이 당연히 동시적으로 발생을 할 텐데 얘기를 들으면서 생각하면 결국은 이게 법정에 서는 건 아니잖아요. 이게 증거 자료가 될 수는 있지만 무언가에 대한 그래서 판정을 내리는 필요는 없겠죠. 네, 그렇지만 아마도 이러한 자료들이 혹은 리서치의 어떤 자료들이
You don't have to be the policeman, but I often have to be the defense lawyer who is working against the policeman. So my effort is to create a body of evidence that frees the criminal.
네,
Thanks for the great presentation. Like for the Rosa Luxemburg investigation, private investigation, you said you have went through that for 3 years, and for this kind of investigation, it could be endless because the people you met, the archive you read. So when will you or Rox call a project stop? Like, when will you think, okay, that's enough, I can stop here?
Very difficult question to answer. There comes a time in the making of the work where, because it is fueled by disagreement, it is fueled by each of us saying to the other, "This is not enough." We follow a very simple rule. If I say to Monica, "This is not working," she has to accept what I say, or I have to accept what she says. But at the same time, I have to immediately provide an alternative. And then she can reject that, right? So I say, let's work with the... For instance, there was, in the Rosa Luxemburg work, we never show the body. We've seen the body. And we've shot edges of the body. And we had a very long set of discussions about, should we show the body? Should we not show the body? Should we show the body? Should we not show the body? And there were very good reasons for showing the body, very good reasons for not showing the body. In the end, we arrived at a position where we said, we will, by showing the body, we will kill what we can do by talking about what the body is and what it means. So that was a decision. That helped us arrive at a decision of where to stop about a particular thing. These decisions add up. And in the process of editing, that's what begins to happen. Every small decision of where to stop something connects to every other decision of where to stop something else. And together, then they begin to form a kind of diagram of what the shape of the work is. And that's how there comes a point when, either through exhaustion, because we get fed up and tired and bored, or through kind of epiphany, or through a kind of arriving at realization, we say, this is it. having worked for 27 years, we sometimes don't need to give each other a reason. Do you understand what I mean? It's like there is a language of what is said and also what is not said. People often ask me, how do you run a collective for 27 years? And I always say, you don't have to say everything. You don't have to talk about everything. Especially, you do not have to create manifestos, which is what collectives tend to do. And then they get imprisoned by what they've said. So in our case, the fact that we don't say a lot of things to each other also helps to arrive at certain conclusions. I don't know if that answers your question.
I'm wondering, given that you posed the question, might the documentarian be a shaman? The figure of the shaman, of course, has a very storied and famous art history in which it's, you might say, a surrogate for the figure of the artist. But one of the things that I think that stands out about the way you guys work is that you seem to work as confidently and as successfully as a curatorial agent as you do as an art-making agent. So I wonder if you would like to say a little bit about on the terms of practicing that you have given us tonight. Is there a difference for you guys between doing curating and doing art-making?
Okay, I can show you something. So this is, I mean, I know it's hard to read, but when we curate, people ask us, someone asked me, what's the theme for Yokohama? And I said, there is no theme. There are a set of clues and a set of sources. So every time we curate, we begin asking ourselves, what is it that's pushing us right now? So this is a recent exhibition called in the Open or in Stealth that we did at Barcelona. And I know it's difficult to read them, but the sources, for instance, range from a page in a book by Harry Houdini about how to escape a trap. You know, Houdini was this magician who used to get out of small boxes, to the Japanese sort of erotic print of a woman and an octopus making love, to a workers' newspaper, to a robot committing suicide. We found these were things on our table and on our minds that we thought had a relationship between the idea of what you can say openly and what you can't say openly. So from constant throwing things back and forth at each other, what emerged was a phrase. Things you can do in the open or in stealth. And that became a frame for an exhibition. In Shanghai, for instance, the exhibition had a title which was called Why Not Ask Again? It's obvious that comes from our persistent questioning of each other. But the sources in that case were a science fiction novel in Chinese called The Three-Body Problem, which Monica and I were reading because we read a lot of science fiction. This is a writer called Cixin Liu. We got interested in him because he was an electricity engineer. He worked in a power plant and in northern China. And the venue in Shanghai for us was a power plant. So we started thinking about power plants. And we found a writer who was an engineer in a power plant. He wrote a book called The Three-Body Problem, which for us was, we're a three-body problem because we're three bodies and we're a problem. So this is how, for us, the curatorial method comes out of the kind of finding things as you go along, stumbling in the dark, throwing things at each other, seeing where they go, and then creating a kind of edifice or an argument or a story or a narrative out of things that very ordinary things that you might be working with each other. So it's never, so in some ways, the curatorial method or the finding of an opening, a curatorial opening, is not dissimilar to the way our artistic practice ensues. And it's not an unfair accusation that people have made that our shows are a lot like our artworks. That is not untrue.
또 질문이 네. 질문 네? 없으시다면 그 락스 미디어 콜렉티브의 락스의 그 어원을 생각해 보면 어떻게 보면 그 우리가 알 수 없는 정체불명의 어떤 변화하는 흐름, 패러다임 속에서 우리가 구분은 할 수 없지만은 어디로 가고 있거나 뭘 보고 있는지조차도 때로는 분간할 수 없는 그런 와중에 그런 어떤 상태와 관련 이게 연상이 되는기도 하는데 이런 아까도 그 강연 중에 말씀하신 부분도 있지만은 우리 첫 번째 강연에서도 얘기가 나온 부분도 있지만 이런 소셜 미디어가 미치는 영향들 그래서 이미지의 의미가 달라진다고도 말씀을 하셨었는데 그런 부분에서 그럼에도 불구하고 이미지 자체가 변했다기보다는 이미지를 바라보는 저희의 시각이 변한 거일 수도 있기도 하니까 그런 지점에서 락스 미디어 콜렉티브가 협업으로서 뭔가 그 이런 지점과 같이 연구해서 작업할 계획도 혹시 있으신지 궁금합니다.
Yeah. Well, the word rocks, I think you must have mentioned it a little bit in the introduction, comes from several languages. And it's part of our language, Hindustani or Urdu, that we speak in Delhi. It's also in Persian and Arabic, and it means this state of whirling. You know, I mean, we have these dervish, they're kind of people who go into trance, and basically they do it. Some people, you know, like you can go into trance by taking mushrooms. You can also go into trance by turning around all the time. You know, if you see a little child who whirls around, then there comes a moment where they become dizzy and it's like the world is turning when they stop. So that moment of revolution, of being in that state of ecstasy or contemplative ecstasy, not as a result of being still. People often think of meditation as being you have to be quiet and still at the same time. I live in a city of 24 million people where nobody is still and everybody makes a lot of noise. So it's turning, everything's moving all the time. And I have to find methods to understand and contemplate the world in the middle of all that movement. And I think we chose that word raqs, which also is a word for dance in our language, for that reason. It also means, because we had a kind of history as computer geeks, there used to be a term called frequently asked questions earlier, especially if you worked in software. You have to create manuals and write a list of frequently asked questions. They were called FAQs. And some people would also ask rarely asked questions, which were RAQS. So we were very pleased to find that synchronicity between our desire for kinesis, for movement, for restlessness, and the idea that it could also be an echo for rarely asked questions. So right now, the questions that we are trying to ask, we've been spending a lot of time in the Large Hadron Collider, you know, that place in Switzerland, in France, where they're trying to blast protons at each other to find the beginning of the universe. So a lot of our conversations right now with astrophysicists, we're trying to make a film, trying very hard to make a film, which I don't know if we will succeed. It may be a failed investigation, on a set of fairy tales that Karl Marx told his daughter, which were about toys that make toys. So we want to make a children's film for little Marxists. And that's one of the things we're thinking about. We're thinking a lot about light and about about creatures that make their own light. So anything that radiates, whether it's radioactive or whether it's creating a form of bioluminescence like jellyfish, that's consuming a lot of our attention. And we all have different obsessions. You know, I mean, the three of us are very different people. So what happens every day is that these three very different people shout at each other and argue and disagree and go back home and the next day come and do the same thing again.
사실 아까 하룬파루키 말씀도 하셨지만은 하룬파루키도 그 아이들을 위한 영화를 굉장히 만들고 싶어했고 또 영화의
Well, he made some.
야
He made some.
그래서 또 교육적 기능에 대해서 어떻게 보면은 또 원대한 꿈을 다 이루지는 못했지만 그셨었는데 그런 부분에서 아마도 락스미디어 컬렉티브의 그 어떤 작업이 하나의 사례가 될 수 있는 부분도 있겠죠.
I don't know if it's education, but I do know it's autodidacticism. It's teaching yourself things. So it's this idea that you have to figure it out for yourself. And I mean, there is a reason why we mention Harun Farokhi, because he, like I said, he made it clear to us, thinking is very hard, making is very easy, and you have to do both at the same time. So you have to think, and that's difficult, and you have to make that is pleasurable and beautiful and easy, but you have to make things that are hard to think but easy to see. And it's always been for instance, now we live with Monica has a child who's now 12 years old, but we have grown up with her. She used to be 4 years old, she used to be 5 years old, she used to be 7 years old, now she's 12 years old. For us, an important dimension of our work is that it has to make sense to this person. They have to be able to say, I understand what you're doing. And it doesn't matter whether it's the most arcane sort of meditation on political economy or philosophy or science or some strange historical thing. It has to make sense to someone who doesn't come to it with the burden of knowledge. So I've always maintained that the work we make doesn't require anyone to know anything. They might go away from it wanting to know something, but you don't come to it with like, oh, I know, I don't like that kind of work that makes you think that you're very small if you don't know something. So that's autodidacticism. That is the element where you treat everything as an opportunity for learning about something.
알겠습니다. 그 하룬파루키의 그 영화 중에 그 두 딸들이 단어를 배우는 혹시 보셨는지는 모르겠지만 침대에서 동화를 구현을 하면 예를 들어서 달이라는 브릿지 단어를 와 관련된 것을 얘기를 하면은 독일의 그 뭐 운하의 모습이 나온다든가 그래서 너무나 쉽게 그렇지만은 그 단어가 갖고 있는 수많은 의미들을 어떻게 이렇게 쉽게 함축적으로 보여줄 수 있는가 하고 놀랬던 적이 있습니다. 그래서 저는 이 오늘 그 락스미디어 컬렉티브가 들려줬던 생각한다라는 어떻게 생각할 것인가에 대한 그런 부분에서 예술적 기능이 이 생각할 수 하도록 어떻게 계기를 마련해 주는가에 대한 고민을 항상 하고 있다라는 것을 느꼈고 또 그런 부분에서 아까 그 네비테의 질문도 있지만은 예술적 작품 활동을 하는 것과 또 큐레이팅을 하는 분이 결국 이율배반적이지만은 않다라는 생각도 듭니다. 그 담론을 형성하는 그런 지점에서는 똑같은 일이라고 생각이 들기도 하고요. 혹시 마지막 질문이 있다면은 듣고 없다면은 여기까지 오늘 그 강연을 하도록 하겠습니다. 내일은 워크숍 프로젝트의 과정에 대한 짧은 설명과 또 워크숍 프로젝트에서 만든 4편의 영화가 상영됩니다. 원래는 그 각 대표들이 나와서 프레젠테이션을 하고자 했는데 수많은 말보다는 그 이분들이 만든 작업을 일단은 그 첫 시사회처럼 보여주고 그리고 끝나고 나서 이렇게 토크를 하는 시간을 갖는 게 보다 효과적일 것 같다고 판단돼서 조금 방식을 바꿨습니다. 내일 또 참석해 주시면 고맙겠고요. 혹시 더 하시고 싶은 얘기는 있으십니까?
Well, I mean, the film that you mentioned by Harun is something that is very dear to us, and both his daughters, especially Anna Farokhi, is a very good friend of ours, and they're twins. And when we saw the film, Anna and Larissa are both exactly my and Monica's age, so we must have been the same age, thinking about things when they were pushed by their dad, do this. And one of the reasons why, I once asked Harun, why did you work with your daughters? He said, because I didn't have to pay them. So they were for free. We do the same thing. I mean, we often get Monica's daughter to say things in our work, or because she's talented and she comes for free. Nowadays she asks for a fee, so she's grown up a little bit. But the reason why I think that's interesting is because of the fact that Harun, until the last day of his life, maintained that childlike curiosity about everything. He could be curious and philosophical about football. He could be curious and philosophical about the making of a Playboy centerfold. He could be curious and philosophical about cooking. And everything was an occasion to ask the simplest and the most difficult question. That is what, I still remember that moment when I was maybe 21 or 22, and we were thinking, Monica Jabesh and I, of making this really ambitious film on the history of anthropological photography, which has never been made. Till now, we've never made it. But because we thought it was so difficult to be able to make this film. Then we saw Harun Farokhi's films and had a conversation with him, and then we came out and said, it's so easy. If you want to talk about the world, you take a globe, and you take another tennis ball, and that's the moon. And you can put a light, and that's the sun. And you can talk about the universe. You don't have to, he made filmmaking such a pleasurable and a playful thing. And that's what I remember. It's like when you were a kid, you can create the universe under the bed by shining a light and with a tennis ball. I remember doing that all the time. And he made the essay film into something like that. So what Lara and what Anna and Larissa are doing in that film, in that sequence, I think the film is images from a war and inscriptions of the world, where the bridge is separating around the river, is exactly what I used to do when I was a 10-year-old. Pretend that we were running countries and fighting battles and exploring the world and going to the moon. You could do anything as a child. And that's what we should do.
결국은 저희가 워크숍 프로젝트를 진행했던 것처럼 뭔가를 되기 위해서 혹은 만들기 위한 욕심을 버리는 것이 어쩌면 제대로 바라보고 생각하는 비결이 될 수도 있지 않을까 하는 생각도 듭니다. 하룬 파루키의 얘기와도 비슷한 상통하는 부분이 되지 않을까 하는 생각도 듭니다. 네.
Thank you.
네, 감사합니다.